Hey guys, welcome to I'm Just Crafty Studio. My name is Nene and I'm so happy you're here. Whether you're joining live or watching the replay later, thank you so much for spending a little creative time with me today. We're going to be building my signature album from start to finish. If you'd like to make one alongside of me, or as you are watching the replay, I've created a free cutting guide. It's linked in my bio, so you can go ahead and download it. It has the exact measurements of what I'm going to be using today to create this album. My hope is that this becomes more than just another craft tutorial. I hope that it's a place where you can slow down, create something beautiful, preserve your memories, and just enjoy the process. So grab your favorite paper, settle in, and let's create some joy. Now this is the album that we are going to be creating today. Just using a few paper materials. And before we start, I want to show you a couple of examples of things that you can do to enhance this very basic album. So first off, this album has just a front cover, a spine, and a back cover. And then I included a pocket here and just an interactive element that has a closure with magnets. It's unfinished, so that's why the magnets still have that double-sided tape on it. But I wanted to just show you just the basic construction of this album. And then using the same process and steps, you can create something like this. This is an example of a finished album, complete with decorative paper and other elements. As you can see, the same pocket is right here. I just added some paper on top, and then that same back closure interactive element is there, and this is what the magnets will look like once they are actually covered with paper. You can get as creative as you want with things, or you can keep it simple. And then in terms of adding things to the album, this particular one, I modeled it after like a traveler's notebook where you would use elastic bands wrapped around the spine, and then you can simply just slide in your signatures of papers in and out of here. So that's one way to kind of bind your papers. And then this one is another example, but this particular one I actually just use the wraparound method. So if you see on the spine, there's like a seamless cover, whereas on this spine, you can see the front cover, the spine, and the back cover. So three different papers were used. This is the one we're going to do tonight. But again, you can use the same process to get a different result. This one also has the traveler's notebook style using the bands, but I added eyelets instead just to give it a different look, and as well as to create like a tie closure. Again, the exact same process to create the album that we're going to do tonight. And the spine here, I use like shoelaces instead of the elastic bands to create this one. This one I am currently working on, so it's in process. Again, I started with the same steps. As you can see, the spine is a separate piece from the back cover and the front cover. But on this particular album, I actually added an extra flap with a magnet closure. Okay, and I still had the eyelet here with the elastic band as an additional closure for there. So I'm working on this one, and then just added some decorative paper just like the other two. And then being mindful as crafters, we end up with like lots of scraps and things like that. So I actually use the same process to create mini albums just using my leftover paper and cardstock. So exact same process to follow those steps. This one I use small elastic bands, kind of like hair ties here. Put some paper together, slid it in the middle, and I have a little mini album. This one, very similar, where I added the pocket, just like in the one we're going to do today, as well as a back closure. This is the seamless wraparound method that we talked about that we saw in this one. This one uses the 3 separate papers. And then this mini album also is a single wraparound method. Again, this is all using just leftover scrap paper that I had, and I was like, I didn't want it to waste. Let me create some mini albums. These make really cool gifts for someone. If someone's having a baby or having a special event and you capture some photos, what a great way to also use up your supplies. So we are going to be making the basic album. I'm going to move these out the way. And it's simpler than you think. Okay, we have, we're going to use 2 sheets of chipboard. You can use cardboard, you can use like cereal boxes, old Amazon boxes, whatever it is that you have laying around the house. I like to use chipboard just to make it more sturdy. We're going to use, put this here. We're going to use a couple of sheets of 12 by 12 cardstock for the inside and outside covers. So I have here 4 sheets, I think should be enough, of just 12 by 12 cardstock. If you have 8.5 by 11 cardstock, you can use that as well because our journals are only 6 by 8. This is just regular weight cardstock. I think the weight is like 64 pounds or something like that. And then for my interactive elements, I actually just grabbed a heavier weight cardstock just because I want them to be a little bit more sturdy. But again, the exact same type of paper cardstock that you use for the cover, you can also use for your interactive elements. It's just your personal choice. Okay, so again, if you want to follow along, I do have my measurements here already worked out for you. And worked out for me too, so that I know what size to cut each piece of paper, chipboard, cardstock, whatever it is that you are going to use. Some other tools that are helpful, obviously you're going to need some kind of glue. This is my glue of choice. Have some double-sided tape to just reinforce things, but if you just want to use glue, you don't need to have the double-sided tape. And then I have a paper cutter. I use a guillotine just to make it easier for me. And then also you could use a regular paper trimmer. And this one actually serves as a paper trimmer and a scoreboard. So I'm going to be using this to score some of the elements. So you'll see me grabbing it back and forth as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me move all these extra albums out the way. Okay, so the first thing I am going to do is I'm going to start by cutting my chipboard. I put my instructions so I can make sure I cut everything to size. So we're going to need 3 cuts of our chipboard, and I got this is Cricut brand, and for whatever, I know why they make it. This is 11 by 11 instead of 12 by 12. They make it 11 by 11 because, you know, if you have a Cricut machine, it has those little wheels on the side, and if it's 12 by 12, it'll indent that side of the board. So that's why they make it that odd size, but it will work for us. So I am going to cut 2 pieces of this chipboard that measures 6.5 by 8.5. Okay, 6.5 by 8.5. My guillotine works well to cut that for me, but before I got this, I would just have to use a ruler and X-Acto knife or like a rotary cutter. But now that I have this, it makes it so much faster. Okay, so we're going to measure 6.5 by 8.5. You save your scrap pieces because they can be used to make those mini journals that I showed you. Okay, so we have 1, and we're going to need to cut 1 more. And this one I'm going to do 6.5 by 8.5. Okay. I don't think that one cut crooked. It did. Let's see if we can still make it work, because I don't want to be wasteful. By 6.5. Maybe a little off, but fine. Okay. And then, so I have my 2 pieces, 6.5 by 8.5. Yep, I was able to cut the crooked part off. Okay, and then for our spine, it needs to be 2 1/4 by 8.5. This is the crooked piece. Let's do this. Let's cut this down to 8.5. I'm going to make sure this is straight. I think this is a crooked piece, huh? Yeah, this is not. Okay. So let's get this out of the way. This one was the crooked, but let's see if we can do 8.5. Oh, stick with this one. Okay, 2 1/4 by 8.5. Let's cut this 8.5 first. 8.5. And I always like to measure twice. I'm going to make it actually just a little bit longer than 8.5 because I think I need to trim it. The other end. Okay, 8.5. No, guess not. It's good. Okay, 8.5. And then we said 2 1/4. So 2, 2.5, and then just bring it back 2 notches. Okay. Blade maybe getting a little dull. All right. So now let's move all of our pieces. Okay, so this is a little taller for whatever reason. I don't know why. 8.5. Okay, there we go. Let's see. There we go. Still a smidget bigger, and I want to get it the right height because I don't want the book to be uneven. So bear with me while I get this measurement together. It's showing up on here as 8.5. Okay, well, we will work it through. Okay, so now that we have our 2 pieces in our spine, the next thing is we need to cut our paper that is going to go around it. And I like to add 1 inch around all sides so that we're able to fold the paper over. So the first cut that I need is going to be 8.5 by 10.5. Something, give me 1 second, guys. Something's going on with my cutter where it seems off, but there we go. Okay, I said 8.5 by 10.5. Okay, so let's go 10.5 first by 8.5. Okay, so that's one. Again, keep your scrap pieces because you can use them for other things. So we got 1 cut, and then let's do the next one. Same size, 8.5 by 10.5. 10.5 by 8.5. Okay. And then for the spine, it's going to be 10.5 by 4 1/4. So this should be 10.5. Yes, and then so we just need to do 4 1/4, which it's not long enough. It's almost, but not quite. But we need it to be, it has to be the 4 1/4 wide, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm gonna unfortunately have to cut another sheet, but it's fine. We'll be able to use it somewhere else. So let's go 10.5 by 4 1/4. Okay, so here's 4 1/4. Okay, and then put that other piece to the side. All right, so we can move the cutting board out of the way for now, and let's get our pieces together. Let me set this on the side. Okay, so we want to lay out both of those in our spine. Okay. And so, like I said, you wanted to, let's roll this out of the way. You want to, I like to use this mat too to make sure that everything is lined up. Okay, so you want to center your cardstock in the center of this paper because you're going to be folding over to make that really neat, crisp edges. That makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to get my glue. And you don't have to put too much glue on your cover. Some people like to use the wider double-sided tape. That's an option too. I do have that. I think the glue is just a little bit easier. And I'll just put a little bit because folding it over is really going to secure your cover. So I'll just put a little just to grab it and make sure that it does not move. And then do your best to center it here in your paper. It's okay if you need to move it around a little bit. Just make sure it's pretty straight. All right, and then I will flip it over and just get my little brandisher and just smooth it out. Okay, so that is one that is done. Let's glue our spine. Same thing. I like to line it up with the grid to make sure it doesn't come out crooked. Your glue. And center it on your paper. Make sure it's straight before you apply the pressure. Same thing, flip it over and smooth it out. All right. And our last one, let's line it up. Apply your glue. I think this cardstock maybe like the 5 millimeter. I know Cricut also makes 2 millimeter, but again, you can use any cardboard you have laying around. The pieces of cardboard that come And the paper packs work really well for this. It just depends on how sturdy you want your album to be. Because I'll be handling this album quite a bit, I want it to be pretty sturdy. I'm going to use this album over the course of this month and just take you guys through a bunch of, not a bunch, but a series of sessions to show you how you can just transform this simple album into a very interactive piece. Okay, so now we have our 3 here. What I am going to do, a couple of things. I'm going to miter the corners to make it easy to fold up. I'm going to score the corners, and then I'm going to apply double-sided tape all prior to folding it over. And I'm going to save the spine and do that last because we're going to do just a slightly different technique with that. Okay, so just get some scissors, and when you miter or cut the corners, don't do it too close to the edge. Kind of eyeball it. And if you end up getting too close, don't worry about it. You can always fix it or cover it when you go ahead to decorate your album. Okay, so we're just gonna trim those corners just like so. And I will do one all the way through so you can see. And then from there, I'm going to use my scoring tool just to score right along where we're going to be folding this up. And because I'm using a thicker paper, like this helps. If you're using a thinner paper, you probably do not need to score. And then I'm going to grab my double-sided tape. You can fold it up. See? Much easier to fold it. Okay. Take your double-sided tape, and I'm going to put that just along the outer edge. And I lost my little card. I'll use this gift card to just help rip it. And do this on all 4 corners. Okay. And last side. Okay. And once you've done that, I like to do the top and bottom first. What you'll do is remove the double-sided tape and then take the glue, and in the areas where the tape does not cover, put glue there. And then I also just like to go over the tape just as a second form of adhesive. Go ahead and secure it. Okay, like so. And then repeat the process on the other side. So do the top and bottom first, and then you can do the sides. Got that. And again, I do both double-sided tape and glue only because I'm using a heavier like chipboard. But if you were just using cardboard or regular, even like heavyweight cardstock, you don't need to use the double-sided tape. It just depends. Okay. And then you can also kind of just like tuck those pointy edges in. Some people just use double-sided tape and don't use glue. So it's personal preference. I think the more you make your albums, you get to figure out what works best for you. Okay. So now we have one done. It's nice and neat all the way through. So then I'm going to just quickly repeat the process. So remember, after you glue the board to your paper, you want to trim your corners. I think I might have trimmed that one too much. Okay, after you trim your corners, I want to score it just a little bit, just to make it easier to fold up. Did I do this one? Yes. Okay, and then go in with my cardstock, with my double-sided tape. Alright. Also, all these supplies I just ordered from Amazon. Nothing special. Try to find whatever. There's a deal, like on the double-sided tape. I get it in different sizes depending on the album that I'm working on. Oops, okay, remember, fold the top and bottom first. Here we go. And also here you don't need a lot of glue, because you're still going to go over it and cover it, secure it with another paper to finish it off. So that'll be an added layer of security. Like, this cover is not coming off unless you intentionally want it off, and it takes a lot of elbow grease, because I made a mistake one day and had to pull the cover off. And it was rough, but it was on there. Okay. We're almost finished, and now we're getting ready to do the spine, which has a slightly different step, but pretty much everything is the same, and I'll show you what that is. And make sure you've got all your edges down. All right, we've got another fully covered cover. So for the spine, the same thing, you want to trim your edges like you did before. Okay, you want to score like you did. And also add your tape. It's a much smaller piece of tape, but on the ends at least. Don't tape the sides yet. do top and bottom because I'm going to show you. We'll go ahead and glue the top and the bottom down. Okay, so get that secure, and you need a little bit more glue on this part because we didn't use that much tape. Okay, now we are going to need to attach all these pieces together, and this is where the different technique. On the front and back cover, we folded the paper over onto the cardboard. Instead, we're going to fold the paper and attach it here. Okay, so what you'll do is you can, did I score these? Yeah, I did. Go ahead and fold it up just to give you okay. You can tuck those in a little bit if you have too much. Okay, so now instead of putting my double-sided tape here on the inside and folding it over, I'm going to put it on the outside because then this is going to attach to this cover. Okay, so let's do that. I'll just turn it this way. Okay, so attach here and then put some on this side, and it's the same process. We're just a different placement. I think for the spine, I probably would recommend doing both the double-sided tape and the glue, just because the spine is what is essentially going to hold your book together, and you don't want to risk it coming apart. So we're just going to do one side at a time. Again, I'm going to add my glue. And then you're going to take, I like to just kind of fold it up to get it lined up. Okay, I want to get it, move this out the way. Side by side, you want to get it lined up. And this is why I was like, oh, if my spine is a little bit taller, it's not going to be that big of a difference, but you kind of just put the pressure side by side before you release it, and then go ahead and get it down. Okay, you get it down, fold it over, do your pressure, and now you have the connecting, the two pieces that are connecting. Okay, so we got one half of our spine attached, and now we'll do the other side. Fold it both ways just to make sure you've got a good adhesion. Same process, pull off your tape, add your glue, okay, fold this up. You want to line them up next to each other. Get it as even as you can. Apply the pressure together and then fold it over. Okay. just like that. Once you've got it down, go ahead and fold it over and just give it a little bit more pressure. Open it up, and now you've got it. So if you notice, now you can really see how it was off a little bit right there. But I'm not going to worry about it because, again, when I start adding decorations and different elements into the album, like, you won't even be able to tell. So this is now the outer construction of it. So the next step here is going to be to cut our paper to cover this so that you don't see the, what do you call this? Chipboard. Okay. So we're going to need 2 sheets of paper. If you have 12 by 12 paper or the 8.5 by 11 paper. So I'm going to need to grab one more sheet of the 8.5 by 11 because I used one. Okay, so, and we are going to cut our papers to 7.5 by 8.5. So it's 2 sheets instead of 3 because we're going to arrange these so that they meet in the middle, overlapping the spine. It just makes sort of a cleaner coverage. Now, if you by chance have larger cardstock, like Cricut makes the 12 by 24, then you can create that same seamless look. Again, use what you have. Yes, if you want to get the cutting measurements, click the link in the bio, and there you can download the cutting guide. Absolutely free. I found, like, in watching tutorials, trying to follow along with people and like trying to write down the measurements, it's just easier to have it. So go ahead and grab it. Okay, so we're going to cut this again 7.5 by 8 1/8. So I'm gonna apologize for that weird measurement, but it's just needed in order to get it right. So I have my little cheat sheet. I downloaded this off the internet. So 1/8 is 2 notches before 1/4. Okay, so 2 notches before 1/4. So if, let's do the easy measurement first. 7.5. Okay, 7.5. Remember, save all your scraps. By 8 1/8. Okay, so I'm gonna get to, let's do this side. I'm gonna get to 8 first. Okay, I'm at 8 on my ruler. 1/8 is actually 2 ticks over. So 2 lines from 8. So there's 1, there's 2. Okay. I try not to do too many of the like awkward measurements because I did not remember that from high school math. But that's why we have our little cheat sheets. I should add one of these to the bio too so you guys can download your little cheat sheet ruler. Okay, so that's 1. Remember, we need to cut 2 of those. Okay, so again, I'm going to cut it 7.5. Saving this scrap. By 8 1/8. Okay, so 8, and then the second line from 8, going toward the 1/2 or 1/4. Okay, and save that scrap. Okay, so we are almost done with just like the outer construction of this. Pretty simple. So now we have our 2 pieces. Make sure they're turned the right way, because if they're turned this way, it's not going to completely cover it. So you'll pretty much be able to figure that out. And then you're just going to glue it. I think it's designed so that it does have like a 1/4 thing. And keep this in mind, you know, at the step where we like trimmed the edges for the spine. So you see how you can see a little bit, like just a peekaboo of the chipboard there. Just cut a little less. But again, it's something I don't worry about, because once I start adding different interactive elements to this, you're not even going to see that. Okay, so once you've got it lined up, just grab you some glue and get those locked in. And then make sure it's in the center all the way around. And glue that down. And then do the same thing on the other side. Same thing over here. Remember that saying, what you do on one side, you must do on the other? It's kind of the process here. Okay. And then just kind of make sure it meets in the center. That's most important. If it's off a little bit on the edge or whatever, again, you can take care of that. We just want to make sure our center meets seamlessly. Okay. And then the last thing you want to do, also you can use your little burnisher to make sure that it is secured. We have to, I like to where it's going to bend. I'm going to get my scoring tool and very gently, as I'm folding up slowly, just kind of score back and forth. And this is so the paper doesn't rip. Okay. So I'm going to go this way, and then you can fold it over. And then I'm going to just do the same thing on this side. Find where the center is, the fold is, and just score. Don't give it too much pressure. You don't want to rip the paper, but just kind of score it as you are going back and forth, and then give it a good fold once you've done that. And then just do the other side as well. Okay. So now we have just the very basic album. It's about a 2-inch spine. This is ready for you to start to decorate, add decorative papers, elements, things like that. Again, this album started off just from this. I added paper to it. I added some elastic bands to be the binding. Okay, I took and folded different types of paper together, put a staple in the middle, and then slid it in the band, similar to a traveler's notebook. And it's all ready for me to work in, decorate, do all the things. These elastic bands are just like things you use in your hair, but I found just larger ones for that. So the next thing that we're going to do before we end tonight is I'm going to show you how I add just this pocket in the front. And am I going to do the fold out element? Yes. And this little fold out interactive element. And again, this is why I told you to hang on to those scrap pieces, because you can use them again, or if not, you can use something else. So this is the result of our basic album, the pocket that we're going to add, and then our little interactive flap. Again, this is what it's going to look like, but this is the possibility of what it can become. So that's what's exciting about this. Okay, so going back to our instructions for the pocket, and I made notes in here, is that the pocket should be cut from a more sturdy material, and then you can add a closure, whether it's a Velcro, magnet, string, button, etc. You can do whatever you want with that. So for this pocket, we're going to cut a 6 by 4 3/4 for the flap, and then a 6 1/4 by 7 for the body. Okay, so what does that look like? This is the flap. This is the 6 by 4 3/4 flap, and then the body is 6 1/4 by 7. Okay, I'm going to move our little album off to the side. And let's see, do I have any of these that are, this one actually might. Let me measure these and see. My little measuring tape. Oops. Because I like to use all my scraps up. I need it to be 4 3/4 wide. So this actually is a little less than 4 3/4. This is 4 and, let's see, 2 notches after a half. This is 4 5/8. It may work. I don't know. And is that my widest piece that I have? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna follow the instructions the way I'm supposed to. 6 1/4 by 7. This will definitely work for the base. So let's do the body of the pocket first, because I feel like the flap, when I designed it, I had a little wiggle room already anyway. So let's figure this out. 6 1/4 by 7. Okay. Let's see. So let's go 7 over here. Let me double check. I always like to triple check my measurements before I start cutting. 7 by 6 1/4. Here's 6 and here is 1/4. Okay. So this is going to be the body of the pocket. This is 4 3/4. No, this is definitely not 4 3/4. If this is the body of the pocket, what was I trying to fit? I could actually use this. So let me cut this to 6, and I'll show you why I can use this. It won't be exact measurement, but I think it will work. Okay, so we've cut those pieces. They don't match because we still have to score them. Okay, so let's score these and see what we come up with. Let me move these out the way so I do not get it confused. Put my cheat sheet ruler over here. Let me get my scoreboard. Okay, let's do the body first. For this body, let's make sure this is going to be, and I want to double check. Here's the album. The pocket is going to go over here. Am I scoring it this way or this way? Nope. We're going to score it this way. So we are scoring it along the 6 1/4 side. And I want to score 1/2 an inch on all 3 sides, okay? So 1/2 an inch on all 3 sides. So we're going to score one side, and I'll just double score it. Score 1/2 on the bottom. And 1/2 on the top, because we're making a pocket. Remember, we have to leave an opening on one of the sides. So that is why we are only scoring on 3 of those sides. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You can see the score lines. And just like with our cover, we're going to miter the sides. And this is just so it doesn't get bulky down at the bottom. Okay, so let's do this step first, and then we will come back and build our flap. So I'm going to just go ahead and fold over the sides. Okay. Double check in the album. The pocket is going to go here. So it's a tall pocket. You also have the option, if you want to, you can cut it down some. Okay. You can trim it down if you don't want it to be this tall. Just depends on what do you plan to put inside those this little pocket. And then I am going to put glue, a generous amount of glue on the bottom first, because we don't want our pocket to come loose. I'm going to center it where I want, toward the bottom, as close as possible. And now that I'm looking at this, I probably could have flipped it the other way, but it's fine. Get it down, flip it open, and go ahead and make sure that it is secure. You want your bottom to not go anywhere, okay? And once you've got that, then go ahead and add your glue to the sides. Glue to the sides. Okay? Fold it up and just secure it. Okay? And sometimes I'll just pinch it just to like push it in just a little bit to make sure that I've got that opening. So now coming back here, you can see that it's a decent size flap, so it's not going to be a problem. What we're going to do is we are going to score this twice and create what's called a gusset. Okay, a gusset. And again, I am going to score this at 1/2. Make sure you guys can see. I'm going to score it at 1/2. And then 1/4 from the half. Yes, have to double check that. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so when you score it, as you can see, here's the 1/2 mark, the first one, and then the second one is just 1/4 over from there. And the reason why you do this is because it's a pocket. You would imagine that it might get a little bulky as you put things in there. And so it just gives you just a little like overhang. Okay, so from that gusset, and it would go here. And if you want to, if you don't want this much room over your flap, you can trim that down. I'm okay with that. But what I am going to do is I want to round my corners just to really give that like envelope type look. Okay, so I just got a corner rounder. So now it looks more like one of those manila kind of envelopes that you use to ship stuff. And I'm going to just put some glue on this back flap. And then just center it and put it close to the top, as close to that top edge as possible. But making sure that I center it to my envelope as much as possible. Okay, and then when you've got it where you want it, oops, it moved. Don't want to do that. Let's get it again. Just give it a little pressure to hold in place, and then gently open it, and then you can really get it down. Okay. And so here you have your pocket. And again, you can decide on what the closure is going to be. So in this one, when I added the pocket here, then I went and added the decorative paper on top, and I used the magnet closure. So you can hear it snap close. Okay. And what that looked like before I added the paper. You put the magnets on before you add your decorative paper so that your paper will cover it up. So here are my magnets that are there, and then just double-sided tape covering it until I'm ready to decorate that. Okay. So now we've got our pocket, and again, it's got this little edge so you can put quite a bit of stuff in there. Very cool. All right. Now, I want to talk about interactive elements or like inserts. This album, because it has a 2-inch spine, can take a lot of stuff in it. This one, and you look at this one that I created. This is a whole different design, but I want you to see like what a 2-inch spine can handle. This was made completely from heavyweight cardstock and different things, but again, interactive elements. These are just different flaps. You can add fold outs, up on fold outs, slides. This thing slides somewhere. Haven't used it in a while. I hope it didn't get glued stuck. Why is it stuck? I don't know why it's stuck. But anyway, just different types of interactive elements that you can add to your album. And again, because we've got 2 inches, we can add a ton of stuff. So if you look at this one, it's got some flaps. We can add a ton of flaps going every which direction you want your flaps to go. Okay, so that is what an interactive element is. And so for this one, we're just going to do a basic interactive element to get the idea. And then my goal is every week I'm going to come back and come live and add a different element to the album, so you get to see it kind of grow as we go along. So for my elements though, I do want to use just a little bit of a heavier cardstock. You don't have to. Again, this is just your personal choice, but I want to use a little bit heavier because, as you saw in that journal, I use a lot of like ephemera and cardstock and chipboard and a bunch of things that can get pretty heavy, and so I want my the base of those to be fairly sturdy. Okay, so for this one, we are going. This is going to go over on this side, so we're going to move this to the side. And for my first piece, I'm going to cut a 8 by 11. So I'm going to be using 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and this is 110-pound cardstock. So all I need to do is just trim, let me double check, 8 by 11. So I just need to trim 1/2 inch off of this. Okay, 1/2 inch. Okay. And then from here, never know, you might need this. I need to score along the 11-inch side. So I'm going to pull out my scoreboard. We're going to score a couple different places. Okay, so I'm going to line it up to where it's 11. And I need to score at 4 3/4, 10 1/4, and 10 1/2. Okay, so let's just go 4. Here's 4, and 3/4 is right here. So I'm going to score here, 4 3/4, do double score because it is a thicker piece, maybe triple, of cardstock. 4 3/4, 10 1/4. Go over to 10 1/4 is right here. 10 1/4. I don't know why that looks so crooked. 10 1/4 and 10 1/2. So that's like it's creating a gusset. Remember we just learned about gussets. Yep. Okay, just go over that one more time. Okay, so we have our score lines. Hold on one second, let's see. We said it's at 4 3/4 is this first one, 10 1/4, and then 10 1/2 to create that gusset. Okay, the next thing we need to do, and you can go ahead and you can fold them with the heavier cardstock. Sometimes if it's not a good quality, it can crack, but I think this is pretty good. So we're going to fold it. Fold this flap here. And then fold where the gusset is. Okay, fold where that gusset is. So this is what it's going to look like. And this is that flap that's going to open up and then have all that extra stuff inside of it. Okay, so we're going to put that to the side. Our next piece that we are going to cut 2 flaps at 4 1/2 by 8. Okay, 4 1/2 by 8. So I'll get another piece of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock. We're going to trim it down to 8. Yeah, trim it down to 8. And then I need 4 1/2. So 2 4 1/2 pieces, which we can get out of this one piece of cardstock. So 4 1/2. And then another 4 1/2. Okay. Save this for later. And then we are going to score to make the, I think this might be a top and a bottom, flap. So we are going to score 1/2 inch along one of the sides. Okay, so 1/2 inch here. Okay, it's there, and then the same thing, 1/2 inch. Okay, and then fold here, and then fold this one. Okay, and these flaps are what we use to attach to the interactive piece. So set this to the side. So we have 2 more pieces to cut. The next one is similar. Okay, we need to cut 2 pieces, one at 5 3/8 and one at 5 1/2. And bringing this back, 5 3/8 is a little bit before the half mark. Okay, and both of those are by 8. So let's trim this down to 8 first. Okay, So 8 inches. And then we're going to do, 5 3/8. Let's do the easy one first, the 5 1/2. Because y'all know that math. Whew, 5 1/2. Okay. It's 5 1/2. And then the 5 3/8 is a little bit shorter than 5 1/2. It's the 2 notches before the half. Okay, so we've got 5 1/2, and then I'm going to move it back 2 lines. 1, 2. And that is just because I think these are the ones that overlap, and we want them to be slightly smaller. And then for this last piece, it says use the leftover 2 by 8. So I'm going to look through my scraps to find my 2 by 8. Is this 8? Yep. Here's my, I don't even have to cut this one. So that is there. Okay, so now let's score these last pieces and then we can assemble our element. So for the for both of these, we are going to score at 1/2 inch along the sides. Easy. Don't have to do any extra math. Okay, so 1/2 inch. And again, this is just making the area for it to attach. Okay, so we are scoring at the 1/2 inch. Ooh, that did not. Okay, and then this is that little loop closure, that little closure strap. For this, we are going to score at 1/2, 3/4, and 6 3/4. Okay, so let's do this. Let me just find a 1/2 inch. Wait. Yeah, so let's do the smaller ones first. At 1/2, because that's the part that's going to attach. 3/4. That's creating the little gusset. And then 6 3/4. So I'm actually going to measure this. Line this up here. Okay, 6 3/4 is right here. I believe that is where the magnet gets attached. Okay, I'll show you that up close. Okay, so we have the 1/2, the 3/4, and then the 6 3/4 right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring everything together. Let's fold these flaps over. Get my glue ready. So we're going to glue these in and be good to go. Okay, this one, and then let's fold our little magnet. I'm not going to attach the magnets today because I ordered some larger magnets and they should arrive tomorrow. So when I come back on next week to do another interactive element and to start to add the paper, I will show you the magnet. All right, so now what are all these pieces, you ask? Let's take a look at our finished one so you could see. Okay, so first off, this flap is this little closure that has the magnet right there. It has the gusset because this little fold out can get chunky depending on what you add to it. Okay, so it has the gusset that snaps to that magnet. And then this piece over here, actually, wait a minute, I might be missing a gusset. 1/2, 3/4, and 6 3/4. I think I'm supposed to have, I am supposed to have 2. I didn't mark that down. Let me see. If this is here, yep, let me just score, and I need to update my sheet because I am missing one of my score marks, guys. Glad I caught that. So I'm going to line this up with 5, and then I'm going to just go over 1/4 just to add that gusset. Okay. And then just go ahead, and now we're cooking. Yep. So now we have this flap goes here. Okay. And you open that. This is our first piece that we cut. So this is this piece. It's gonna be glued down to the album like this, and it's gonna fold out. Okay, what I think I'm gonna do differently is I'm gonna actually glue this to it first. See that? So then this is already attached. Okay, so let's do that. Just add some glue. And just line up the gusset, both gussets. Line that up. You can decide where you want this closure. I mean, it could go at the top, the bottom, doesn't really matter. It's your choice. Okay, so then this would go over that way, and it still has room for this little fold out to get chunky because this will open. Let it dry. This is going to open this way. Okay, so now the next thing that we are going to do is, let's see, we need to attach this is here. I'm trying to remember how I did that. This folds out. Oh, we just added those on, I think. Here is here. Yeah, we just added these two to the center. Let me open this up. So these two are kind of attached to each other. Okay. So then we have the smaller piece on the inside. Okay. So see how the smaller one is on the inside? Here, I think I cut it way smaller. Maybe my measurements were off, but it's good enough here. Okay. And then these are going to be glued in to this. Let me double check. Let me see. Do I want it this way? Actually, I want it this way. So then it kind of shows different. And you'll see it when we add the paper, how it peeks out at each other. Okay, so we're going to glue the shorter one on top of the longer one. Since they're already here, I'm just going to add the glue. Since they're already lined up, and just add that glue right there. And secure it. Okay. Secure that in, and then it just goes attached in here like so. So then I'm gonna just add glue to this part. And then just get it lined up top to bottom. secure it in, fold it over, get it in there. Okay, so now we've taken that one piece of cardstock and we have made space for like 6 different elements, and we can keep building on this. Like, it doesn't stop with this. Okay, so we have these two. So now on this back piece is where we added the top and the bottom flap. So I'm gonna just take, let me see. Yeah, we're gonna add it to the inside like that. And this will be covered up once you add your decorative paper. Okay, so we're going to just add our glue. And then you want to center it on here. Oops. Somewhat in the center. Okay, get it close to the top. And then get that down. Like so. And then just do the same thing at the bottom. Add the glue. And I'm going to just pull this down so I can line it up as best as I can. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. That looks good. And then get that locked in. Open it up. And secure it down. Okay, so we have our flaps here. This here. And then we have our closure. And then remember, when we insert, move this out the way, bring our album at hand back into the picture, we are going to secure this edge along the edge of our album over here, okay? And give this a nice amount of glue, because this is going to get a lot of work in. Probably could have used the double-sided tape as well in the glue, but be good. And then just line it up along that edge. Press it down, and then very gently, because you don't want it to shift. Go ahead and open it up and give it some pressure. You could use your scoring tool to really make sure that it is down. How about that? All right, y'all. We have made our signature album with a pocket in the front, just using some chipboard, some cardstock. We've got 2 interactive elements so far, but we're going to add so many more as we go. So make sure that you follow us so that you are aware of when we do this. I think the next like 4 Wednesdays is when I want to come work specifically on this particular album. So if you missed the live, don't worry about it. I will upload the replay to our YouTube channel, so it'll be there forever. I know lives on TikTok don't last very long. And again, if you want to get the cutting guide, the link is in the bio. You can click it and you'll be able to download it as well. So remember, we're going to take this basic album with just a couple of interactive elements and really turn it into like your personalized or your custom work of art, just by adding some decorative papers, maybe some cutout elements. Start thinking about the possibilities of it, because this could ultimately, this is another one that I'm working on, just a little bit different. But if you're just adding things. This started, instead of black, I just used gray cardstock. or yeah, gray cardstock, and then just added these things to it. We're going to add a closure for the album itself. And then don't forget to save your scraps, because again, these mini albums, there's one more somewhere. Yeah, these mini albums were used with leftover paper, but it's the same concept. We started off with some scrap chipboard, covered it with decorative paper, created the little spine, then added stickers and stuff to it. Same thing with this one. There's that pocket we just made right there, and this one even has an element in the back that's a little bit different, but we just added some cutouts to it, some little flaps. So you can do all kinds of fun things with that. So thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know in the comments.